this is my story. Okay. It was the year 2100, and to say that the world was in chaos would be an understatement. It was a dark, stormy night for the two scientists situated in emergency vault number 77. Large neon green glows were shining outside the research station, where the two scientists were figuring out a way to get out of this mess. Their names were George and Orwell. This story takes place after the Great Resource War of 2094, which left a wasteland on Earth. The remaining survivors were all bunkered up inside vaults. In this world, supplies that we take for granted, like water and food, became scarce. So much so that the remaining survivors of this world have all joined in warring factions to fight for these resources, frequently stealing and looting from each other. The rough environment has made George and Orwell rather close, even though they didn't initially like each other. They grew up to like their little particularities, made the wasteland a little bit more bearable. And they would say like, "Hey, good morning, how are you?" But their grim reality would soon pierce through every nice moment they had. Like this! The exposed water tank on top of the water tower has just received a gunshot. Bang! Water started leaking. Drip, drip, drip. The droplets of water began to pour out. "Oh my god! I think somebody shot our water tank!" exclaimed Orwell. "Don't be silly, Orwell. Who would be stupid enough to do that? After all, they wouldn't actually be getting the water. It's pointless." Bang! Another gunshot hit the water tower, and big splashes whoosh, whoosh, followed. George was shocked and thought he was right, but he couldn't let that distract him from the breakthrough that was about to happen. And if anything, the lack of water became a catalyst from George's studies. For George's studies, he was like, "Oh my god, I need to do this. We're gonna die of thirst." So he started tinkering and tinkering. And then his particle accelerator suddenly sounded off. Bang! And then there's a portal on the wall. "Orwell, it's done. We figured out time travel," said George. "Ah, yes," said Orwell. "And it's just on the nick of time. We're even down to our last millimeter of water. Thank God." Now it's time to celebrate, and George whipped out a canister of some of the last remaining galaxy gas in the world. But Orwell said, "You fool! You just figured out time travel and you're gonna get high? This is huge, and why do you even like that thing anyway?" Orwell exclaimed. George was confused and said, "You're silly, okay? You should take this with me because, yeah, this numbs you out, but it also tells you how the world should be. Have you ever thought of, why are we even here in the first place? What are we even doing?" Orwell was not amused by this, but George continued. "Orwell, have you ever just been, really high and wondering, why we even..." George was getting to get concerned. Orwell was beginning to get concerned with George, so much so that he started to reach for his ray gun at his hip. And George quickly snapped from his drug-induced empathy and lovingness and saw that what is about to happen. "Wait, you're gonna kill me?" George said. "What the heck, man? We just figured out this crazy hard thing and you want to kill me? What are you even doing that for?" See, this is the problem with the world, George. This, silly interaction is like a microcosm for everything wrong. People are so quick to hate one another because of some vague ideas of order and cleanliness that they don't even follow. That's why I plan to fix this. It involves this gas, and it involves me using it through all the times and all the places. Orwell waited and took a deep breath. He thought about this a lot and said, "Yes, Georgie, although I love you deeply, you have gone against my core belief that is might truly makes right. And if taking this galaxy gas makes it so other people stop believing this, I vow to destroy all present and historic version of this truth-revealing gas." Orwell quickly dove straight for the gas canister, yanking it out of George's hand. He stole the portal gun and went through the portal. "Ain't no way, bro," George exclaimed. "He just left me, my longtime pal." Tears began to stream down George's cheek. With him wanting a little bit of closure, he jumped through the portal. They were both transported to Italy in the year 1173. As soon as they got there, they started fighting. What are you even doing this, Orwell? Orwell punched George, and he hit him so hard that the tower began to lean. George, at first full of pain and uncomfortableness, couldn't even help himself to admire how power. But he couldn't. At first, he was full of pain and uncomfortableness, but he couldn't help but admire how powerful Orwell's muscular physique was. But he couldn't get distracted for so long. Soon, George and Orwell figured out what just happened, and they were both like, "What the hell, boy? So this is why the Tower of Pisa is perpetually leaning? Oh my God, this makes me hate you so much more. You're like the whole reason all of these historical things are happening, Orwell." Orwell did not care. With a bratty little grin on his face, he shot up the portal gun and went to Germany in June of the 1940s, in the middle of a Hitler SS meeting. George followed him through the portal because even though he didn't know where it was going, he cared a lot for Orwell. The portal was on the roof of the Hitler meeting, and they landed on the table, breaking the table cleanly in two halves. "We're so cooked," they both unanimously said. "Nine, nine, 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 nine! What are you doing? Here's the middle of my meeting. I'm gonna kill you!" Before either of them could form a singular thought, almost like a machine, George nabbed the gas canister and opened the valve silently. With Hitler's guards about to stab George and Orwell, they suddenly paused, and their serious face turned into silly, joyful smiles. Hitler exclaimed, "You guys are wonderful gentlemen. Now tell me, what brings you over here?" George and Orwell breathed a sigh of relief. Then George quickly whispered, "It worked. The galaxy gas. It calmed down these Nazi freaks." Then Orwell, in his quick thinking, said, "Alright, wait, Hitler. We've come from the future with an urgent message. In the future, the Nazi Empire collapses because you guys did not fight the Russians hard enough. So by all means, please invade Russia in the winter. If you do that, you'll surely win, and you'll completely catch them by surprise, and your troops will totally take Stalingrad. And it will not lead to a crawl that completely turns the tide of World War II." "Oh, what a great idea," said Hitler. And George said, "Okay, with that cleared, we need to go back to the future to celebrate your totally epic and righteous moral victory, Hitler." Orwell quickly grabs George, and they go back to the present year of 2094. George says, "Phew, that was a close one. And oh my God, you did it again. You did history." "So that's why Hitler carelessly did Operation Barbarossa and stupidly tried to take Stalingrad." Orwell looked confused. "But we're not done, sir. You see what we just did? We just altered the world into what it could be. If you hadn't done that, who knows? We wouldn't even be here right now. We wouldn't even exist, George," George said. Orwell then broke his silence and said, "Well, I guess you're right. You're the whole reasons we're here. The whole reason we're not speaking German right now. And honestly, we kind of made this whole thing up anyway. To be honest, the whole thing with restricting us is probably so countries can just have more factory workers and soldiers. It's the ideas that we hold are really just the ideas of the people in power." George said, "Oh my God, you're right. And also, there's another thing I would like to say. I really, really love you." Orwell's face became uncontrollably red. "Oh, wait, you love me? I think I love you a lot too." They both began to cry and kiss passionately. Then at the end, they both said, "This is just like the book 1984 by George Orwell."